Well, I think that is the fanciest intro I've ever seen in my life, and not very fitting for a shed dweller such as I. Hey guys, Jimmy here, and welcome to Live from the Shed. Not the most glamorous location in the world, but one that's, of course, steeped in sim racing history. This sort of show thing is basically a chance to get to know some drivers better, be they esports, be they real life. And today, I'm joined by, I guess, a up-and-coming figure, someone that's become more and more prominent in the last few years in real life racing, and that is Charlie Martin. Hello, Charlie. Good to meet you.
Hey, Jimmy. Thanks for inviting me to your shed. It's great to be here.
I know. It's a little bit cramped in here, isn't it? But that's 2020 for you, isn't it? So if people don't know who you are, how about a little small intro to who you are, what you do, and what you're trying to do?
Sure thing. Well, I'm a racing driver, so I've been competing for about 15 years now, and I currently compete in endurance. This year I've been racing on the Nordschleife, competed in the Nürburgring 24-hour race as well for the first time ever. And my big ambition is to race at Le Mans. So I want to do that, I guess, primarily as a racing driver, just because to me it's the biggest, most incredible race out there. And also I suppose a big part of who I am is also the fact that I'm transgender. And so being as motorsport traditionally doesn't really have a lot of diversity, I've had a bit of an unusual journey in motorsport, and I've been trying to use my profile to create more acceptance, more awareness, and just generally make motorsport a bit more diverse and inclusive, really. And hopefully by getting to Le Mans, that would be something that would make LGBTQ history and could inspire a lot of positivity and a lot of good things, really. I think that's kind of me in a nutshell. And of course, esports has been something that I grew up with, because I had a console, playing all the kind of games, from being a young kid, and now I've kind of, after a bit of an absence, I've come back into it in quite a big way at the beginning of this year. and just been jumping right in at the deep end throughout lockdown.
I think, yeah, that's everyone's shared experience, isn't it? Is oh no, I've got to find something to do now to fill the time. And that's jump on the rig and stuff like that. Well, we'll get to a couple of bits. I think you sort of mentioned a bit later on. But I wanted to sort of just go in into sim racing and esports, because that's what I do. That's what people tend to know me for nowadays, is pretend race driving. So how have you found sort of coming back to sim racing after being away for a while? It's a different thing to get used to. I kind of find.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everything I did when I was growing up was on a console with a controller, playing a lot of rally games, a lot of circuit racing games, and I'd say I was pretty good back then. But a lot of playing your mate on split screen and that kind of thing. Whereas now it's I'm lucky. I've got a really pretty awesome sim rig at home that I've just built. I started putting it all together just at about this time last year, actually. So good timing, really. So yeah, I got some awesome kit from Thrustmaster and Next Level Racing and Republic of Gamers, and it's a million miles into the future compared to what I grew up gaming with. It's and I guess the games I've been playing as well are much more kind of focused on creating that realism factor. So I've been playing a lot of Assetto Corsa Competizione, a bit of R Factor 2, bit of iRacing, albeit I haven't spent so much time on that game. But yeah, it's sort of, I love it. I think it's, I've used it quite a lot for learning tracks that I'm going to be driving on. This year, learning the Nordschleife, it was just, I don't know what I'd have done without having that kind of tool at home to practice on. But I think also one thing I've been keen to do recently is play a few games that are a bit, get more into the kind of fun factor, which isn't to say that I don't have fun playing the games I'm playing on, but when you've got like an hour of practice and 30 minutes qualifying and then long races, it can take up a lot of time just to, and all the practice you do in the week. Whereas games where you just jump on and you do like 2 or 3 laps and play a friend, it's that kind of spontaneity is quite good to have a bit of a mix of the two, really.
You don't really get that much anymore, do you? I mean, especially with sim racing, it's this whole scheduled thing, and everyone has to go through rules and regulations, and there's a place for it, definitely. But I also sort of miss that. I miss having the ability to jump on something and be at a reasonable level. When I used to play with my friends as kids, after a while, they sort of banned me from playing because I was on the gamepad. I was a bit of a wizard, and that, of course, and then you think you're the king, I'm old, and then you go online, and then you find out you're not at all.
That experience resonates definitely.
I found that a lot. So in terms of gear, so you went from just basically playing with a gamepad to a steering wheel straight away. There was no sort of transition there.
No, there wasn't really. I mean, I guess when I was playing on, PlayStation and Xbox back when I was a teenager, I mean, you could get wheels and pedals back then, but I don't know what was how good they were in terms of what the kind of kit we typically play with these days. But yeah, so we just used to use gamepads and develop RSI in my thumb and things like that. So, but I used to really love that. I mean, it was funny actually, because just the other week I was playing on Dirt 5 and I was using a controller, and honestly, it's the first time I probably really properly sat down and used a controller in years. And I just enjoyed it. I had such a laugh, and it really brought back a lot of those kind of feelings from growing up, which is something I've perhaps missed a bit, because I like throwing yourself into the big, types of competitions and all the prep that goes into it. But sometimes you just don't have time. And when you're playing against people as well who have put in that amount of practice, and you've had a mad week, and you literally just jump in and you look and you do practice, and you're like, oh my God, my times are like nowhere. It's the attraction of actually just jumping on a game like that with a mate and just banging into each other and it not being the end of the world is also quite a feeling.
It is nice, yeah. I don't get much of that nowadays. It's all serious stuff and practice. Speaking of practice, we've got a race tomorrow.
I've had a mad week. I've not had a week yet. I know mad week. I just been, okay. Get my excuses in early. I'm a racing driver. Yeah, I've got a book right here. It's racing driver for excuses.
Do they give that to you when you get your hours? Because I've not had mine come through yet. I'm waiting for my excuse book to come through.
Oh yeah. Motorsport UK will send it through. Yeah.
So if you guys don't know, Charlie and I are teaming up in the Pro Sim series. We're taking part against. I've just looked at the entry list. We've just been sent it, and it is disgusting. I
want to hide. It's like, and also because I have a very low rating on iRacing, and everyone else has like something in the thousands.
Yeah, so to sort of explain what that is very quickly, basically the series is we're in an F3 car and we share the car. I think it's a sort of driver swap scenario going on, and each race we go through, we sort of share the load of the race. And I'm going to just very quickly, because I have the list in front of me now, just read out a couple of teams. Now, our combined I rating, by the way, is 4,286.
What do I bring to that?
My I rating is 4,286, Charlie. Where's yours? 0 I rating currently.
I've not. I did a race actually with W Series Esports League this summer on iRacing, but that's literally all I've done on the game, and clearly they didn't think well enough of me to give me any rating from it. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you start off with, I want to say it's like 1,500 or 2,000. So like we'll bulk that up to like 6,000 or so.
But you start with well, how come I have 0 then?
You've done something very wrong, Charlie. I don't know what you've done. But there are teams here. I saw one here, and this is the worst one. Where is it? It was like 19,000, something like that. There it is. Now, how about this for a team? It's a combined I rating of 19,819, and that is Max Verstappen and Max Benecke. How's that fair? What's that about? Come on.
We'll be fine. It'll be right on the day.
It's
only Max Verstappen and Max Benecke. I mean,
I've never heard of them, but I think it'll be fun, and it's really cool seeing all these different names sorted together here, because I've had the opportunity to race a lot of these guys at the start of lockdown. I think Redline did a sort of like fun race from home series. Did you ever get involved in that as well, Charlie?
I wanted to, but sadly I didn't have a PC at that point in time, so I think I was invited to do it, but I just couldn't get my hands on a PC. Okay. And I was, it was a shame, because I mean, looking at the grid on this race, it's incredible. I mean, some of the people that we're going to be racing against.
I think you sort of, it's a blessing and a curse to miss out from that, because I remember some of those races, 40 frustrated pro drivers who couldn't go and drive their real car, flying towards T1, and me, the sim racer, just sort of closed my eyes hoping that I got through. I never did. Always murdered straight away. But I've been told they've been behaving so far, so hopefully they'll be good.
I think I mean I raced in the ABB Formula E Race at Home Challenge, and I know watching some of the first races with all the pro drivers, it was definitely a case of curb your enthusiasm, because there were some very committed moves, I think.
I was in that as well. I forgot.
You were in that first race.
I was in the first one,
Yeah,
I remember, because I think someone punted me out of the way, and basically, because that format was pretty terrible, where it was like if you turn up, and then if you're like last in the last lap, you just get booted. So you do like an hour of practice and then get booted straight away if you're not like 19th.
And we had one lap quali as well. Which was like, I tell you what, actually, because that race series is the first real esports series that I've ever competed in. And I'm like, it's televised, and the pressure of like doing all that practice in the week, and then because I did something like over 200 hours of gameplay and practice over the 7 or 8 races.
Wow.
I mean, I really put a lot of energy and time into it, but then to get like one lap quali, and I think the first 2 or 3 races I just fell to pieces in quali. I was way more nervous than I get in real life sitting in a car. it was bizarre, like my hands were sweating.
Isn't that mad? Isn't that mad that like you can find more pressure in the sim world that you can in the real world? Because I've not done any big time races yet, but I've done some karting, and
Okay.
in a couple of hundred in the UK, and I find myself when I'm on the grid there, same sort of thing. Your heart's going mental, but then as soon as the green flag sort of comes out, then you just sort of calm down and get on with it.
You just focus, don't you?
But
Yeah.
in I think maybe because you're in the sim and there's not so much going on, maybe your mind's got more room. I don't know, like more room to worry.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I've tried to sort of self-analyze why that happens, and I have it a lot less now. I think just a bit through repetition and more time and experience. But equally, there might be some sweaty palms going on tomorrow, I think. So
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. Well, actually, no, it should be good. I actually am looking forward to it because I've not driven the F3 car for a long time. I was saying to you before the broadcast, the the last time I drove there, I punted Emerson Fittipaldi, and which was a very, not a great way to sort of end off my Laguna Seca career, so to speak. I think my webcam's gone. Hey, webcam, wake up!
That's a very unsportsmanly thing to do.
Yeah, definitely on purpose. You've got to assert your dominance over the world champion.
Strike first.
That's definitely what it was like. Now, I've somewhat prepared. I did write a couple of things down. I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
So, there you go. That's a good one. So, I wanted to speak about sort of what you touched on a little bit, and that was we have this sort of fun, ongoing in-joke in sim racing, which is fun in sim racing is illegal.
Okay.
Right? You're not allowed to have fun in sim racing.
Nobody told me that.
I know, right? And a big part of what I like to try and do in my content, in my videos anyway, is try and sort of say, well, screw that. You can do whatever you like, and but I think the problem is that we have these two sort of very distinct levels of sim racing. One which is super high, your Max Beneke's and all those, and then you've got your Jimmy Broadbents down here somewhere. I mean, I think there's room for both, but commercially, that's where I sort of struggle. Commercially, maybe you can only have one.
I mean, I don't know. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of all the content that you make, and I think that the way your whole style is really engaging and really fun to watch. So
Cardigan style is what it is.
Cardigan style. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I think I'm a vlogger myself, and I always try to. I don't take myself too seriously. I mean, okay, obviously when I get in a car and I go racing, yeah, that's one side of who I am and what I do. But I think in terms of when you're making content, you want to, I don't know. I think it's good to be, just to fool around a bit sometimes, and it's much more interesting for people to, I don't know, it's more likable, I think.
I become a sweaty mess anyway. Like if I try hard, I just become like this horrible, just like it's disgusting. It just waterworks. Now let's get slightly more back on topic because I'm not sure people want to hear about me sweating that much. But next year, 2021, what's on the cards for Charlie Martin?
So the big exciting thing on my cards is racing with Praga in the Brit Car Endurance Championship. So I'm absolutely stoked, to be honest. I'm so looking forward to next season because the Praga R1T, I was driving it at Donington last week, and it's just a phenomenal little car. 620 kilos, full carbon monocoque, 380 horsepower, loads of aero, massive power to weight, really, really agile, central driving position as well, which is quite unusual in a prototype. So you've got this fantastic field of view. And on top of that, we're going to have a massive grid of Pragas next season within Brit cars. So there's going to be like 10, maybe even 12 cars all battling it out. And it's going to be, it's going to be wild. And I've got a really good teammate as well, Jack Fabi, who's been racing the car this year.
Ah, yes, I know Jack.
He's he's a very quick driver. I've been with him today. Actually, we've been filming some stuff, and really nice guy. And I think we're just as well, to have already kind of met your teammate and had some time on track and just hanging out and getting to know each other at this point in the year is really nice because, this year, for example, I met one of my teammates I was sharing the car with the day before our first race.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's a great guy. He's an Italian guy. And we've actually we've had such a laugh racing this year, but nonetheless, it's nice just to feel like you're coming to the year with like all this time to prepare and, we've got a great team around us. I think, Praga are a brand with some really cool aspirations in terms of what they've done and where they're going. And yeah, it's amazing to have this opportunity to race with them. So yeah, I'm made up.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a bit of that car. It looks pretty mental. I'm not going to lie.
It's a rush. It's a real rush ride. I mean, I've driven some quick cars, and it's quick.
Do you find it sort of difficult stepping up to that? Because I know you started off, I think, in sort of hatchback cars, but from memory. And I did do a tiny bit of research. That's about it. We're done now. The research is over. How have you found it sort of ramping up to, what is going to be what is essentially a little baby prototype?
Yeah, for sure. The Prague is actually a very accessible car in terms of jumping in it and being able to extract the performance that it offers. I think, whether you're a pro driver or an AM driver, that's one of the really cool things about it. I mean, I've driven all kinds of things from single seaters, GT cars. I drove some LMP3 last year.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I've had good experience in prototypes and high aero cars. I mean, one thing I'd say about the Praga compared to a P3 car is that in a P3 car, it feels very claustrophobic when you first get in it, and you've got all these massive blind spots, and the car is big, and you're talking about a ton of car by the time you fueled it up and everything. Whereas the Praga feels very small, and you've got a good view out over it. So it's not an intimidating car, although like any car, getting that last 10% out of it is still like a real challenge. And very engaging. So yeah, it felt right from the moment I first drove it, actually, which was around this time last year at Motorsport Days Live. So I'm pretty excited. I had the biggest grin on my face after driving it at Donington the other week. Seriously.
I don't know why I expected you to say I had the biggest crash at Donington. I don't know why my brain went that way.
Yeah,
but it wasn't that.
I think the challenge for me, to an extent, is because the car that I've been racing this season, the BMW M240i Racing Cup car, driving that on the Nordschleife, it's like this car's, it's a great little car, but it has no downforce, and the Nordschleife is so bumpy, and all the elevation change, and you're literally like, it's like being on some kind of, all four wheels off the ground at times. And then you get into a car with downforce and it just goes where you put it. And so getting to the point where you're trusting that the car will just grip takes a little bit of adjustment. But,
Yeah, I can imagine that. I mean, I've had a couple of experiences where I got to drive a GT4 car start of 2019 and not a ton of downforce and that, or cornering grip compared to the Praga, I suppose, but still it had decent tires. I wasn't quite getting temperature in because I was just scared. But you have to sort of push the car a little bit to make it warm up, and then it comes alive. But if you don't give that initial push, then
yeah, that's one of the difficult things. Is like you say, if you're not in that zone where, but I suppose you still have that in sim racing in terms of like the physics of the cars when you're sort of pushing them. And I mean, how do you find it as someone coming more from the virtual world coming into the physical world?
So this is my favorite story to tell about me just taking the information and going, oh no, get rid of that. When I first went karting, I went out the pit lane. I said, tires are cold. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. So I gave a bit of weave. I could feel it was really slippy. And then I thought, right, they're done now. I've warmed up a little bit. So I came around the first lap to the corner, which is sort of like do you know Lid karting?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Okay, well, that's all right. It's the first corner is sort of like a fast little chicane. I thought I'll just chuck it in there, and I just turned and the car spun because the tires were freezing. And then I was like, oh, why did that happen? And then because I just didn't. There was a moment where I didn't quite separate it properly. Ever since then, I've been like, okay, I now know what the difference is between getting tires warm and going out and giving it a couple of laps. You know, I did a couple of sessions at Hockenheim in a little Fiesta ST with slicks on.
Oh, I saw that video.
Yeah. And the first lap, the rear tires just sort of don't do anything, and then suddenly you have grip, and as soon as you start to learn where that heat comes and progressing up to it, well, I think the difference between like an amateur driver and like a pro driver is you can progress a lot quicker up to where you get the speed. So it took me a little while to sort of get that confidence to go, right, okay, it will stick now, and then it gets better, faster and faster as you go. But I've definitely got better at that. But it is sort of mad because in real life you die. You're like, oh no, if I make a mistake, there will be a big crash and it will cost lots of money. Of course, in the sim, the classic thing to say is you can just hit reset. But
yeah,
until you're out there, you don't think about it.
It's true, but then equally, I think when you're driving in a competition, like I've been driving, I've been racing with the guys at Turn 1, a team of us that race in Assetto Corsa Competizione, and it's like against that whole thing of being a bit serious, you put all that practice in, and if you're doing a 1 hour race, you still you don't want to damage the car, right? Because then you've kind of wasted like hours of your time that you've put into practicing and everything, and it can be okay. It's not the same as reality when you're like, oh great, now I've got a big bill to take care of. But
that's when you sort of hightail it away from the track, isn't it? You go, oh, sorry guys, I'll see you later on. There's this car in ruins in the background, and get out of there. I mean, of course, exactly. In real world, you haven't got netcode though. You haven't got the odd little sort of bit of the meter of doom around your car that if someone comes into it, you have contact despite them actually not hitting your car, which is
okay, that's a new thing on me, right?
Oh, you might notice that in iRacing is netcode. It doesn't always happen, but if someone has a bad connection compared to yours, basically the game tries to predict where they're going to be,
right?
And then if it predicts it wrong, you just get launched.
Right, hold on, just let me write Racing Driver Book of Excuses.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Netcode.
It's like you say, you come into the corner 40 k's faster than the other guy, slam off. On netcode, mate. Sorry, didn't mean to. That's how you do it. We've got a couple of questions here from the chat, Charlie, if you don't mind. I thought I'd open up the floor, so to speak. So we have, now I'm terrible at pronouncing names, so watch me butcher all of these. We have Mainak Vashit. I'm saying that wrong. Sorry, mate. It says, favourite car you've ever driven so far?
Well, if it was a road car, I think it was a friend's Gallardo. I drove that in the Swiss Alps, and that was, man, anything with a V10, just you paints a big smile on my face. I think race car, it's a tricky one. I mean, the Praga definitely is. I think it's going to be holding that spot very soon. To be honest, yeah.
Okay, that's a good one. I'm looking forward to seeing you go around that and see what comes up. Here's an interesting one. This is from Hugh RC. What got you into racing initially? What got you first driving?
To be honest, the simple answer is when I was my first ambition, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. Okay, so I grew up in the 80s. Top Gun was my favorite film, and that is all I thought about as a kid. Just fighter planes, that whole thing. And then I gave up on that dream because I'm really bad at maths and physics. I
can relate. It's okay.
Ask me to draw a picture of a horse, fine, or come up with a color scheme for something, great. But like maths, no. So that I kind of gave up on the dream of flying, and that then one of my friends at school, his dad used to race, and we used to go over with him at the weekends, and I just was like, wow, like racing cars, and also being there in the paddock and not feeling like you're on the other side of the fence, like actually being surrounded by it all, and like, oh, I'm part of this car, and I'm helping out and doing whatever. And I then playing computer games and learning to drive, and so car culture just came at me from all these different angles. I've got no family history of motorsport. No one in my family's ever raced or anything. And then the year I finished university, I was like, right, I'm going to go racing, even though I've got no money in the world. Basically, I saved up 1,500 quid from a summer job, bought a Peugeot 205 for 1,500 quid. It was a project that I had to finish off, and I started hill climbing it a year later, and it all began there, and gradually got more and more out of control.
I really like that story because for someone such as myself, it's always been just completely out of the realms of reality to go racing because, as you say, it costs a lot of money. Like people sometimes don't realize how much money it costs to go racing because it isn't just buying the car. It is consumables. It is having a crash. It's entry fees. It's racing gear. All that stuff.
Yeah.
And it adds up very quickly. But I love the idea that you can go out and buy a 205 from your summer job, and sort of put in the work, put in the time, then go and hill climb it like that. £1,500 is still a lot of money, but I think like it is an achievable amount of money compared to say, I've heard some stories of it being 10 grand for a day of testing in a GT3 car or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think racing, hopefully more and more. Well, not at the moment, of course. It's difficult right now, but there is still a way in. It's not completely.
Yeah, there is, and
off.
That's it. I mean, I told myself for so long, hey, look, I don't come from like rich parents or anything like that. I just was like, I've got what I can earn, and that's it. And 1,500 quid was all the money in the world to me back then. But you could still start now with that budget and go hill climbing, and have a lot of fun and meet some lovely people. And that was one of the things I loved about hill climbing straight away. It's all the people that you hang around with as well at the races, and that feeling of being part of this huge family of petrol heads and people who just love talking about cars all weekend. And you learn so much from osmosis, just being in that environment. And I love that as much as the racing. And I just, for a long time, I thought, this is what I'll do. And then I went off racing I always wanted to go compete in Europe. And then I bought the Formula Renault and went and drove that in the French Hill Climb Championship, and it was mental.
I can't imagine a Formula Renault on a hill climb. Or you've seen some of those sort of like hill climb specials where it's just like a judge in the back, and you're like, "What are you doing? That's crazy!" Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, because I'd always watched all these videos on YouTube of people hill climbing in Europe on closed roads in like single seaters, prototypes. I was like, that looks so bad. Like, and I used to tell some of the people in England, I was like, yeah, but European stuff looks really good. And they're like, no, it just looks really dangerous. And they're like, yeah, but come on. And long story short, I was like, I sold my Westfield and scraped the money to put with it, bought this Formula Renault, and I'd never driven a single seater. And I remember turning up at my first race in France, and I'm like, I'm about to drive this down a B road in France.
What am I doing?
yeah, literally. But it went really well, and I just I just had 3 years of like crazy adventures racing over there, and met lots of amazing people, and went to all these beautiful parts of France, and found my way into a prototype in the last year. And I just, you really have to push yourself in any racing, but in hill climb especially, because you're not chasing anyone. It's just you, the clock, and the hill. And it's all about like facing your fear, I think. And I really, there's a masochistic part of me that really enjoys that.
I mean, I think that's a good thing. You sort of need that as a race driver, don't you? That sort of level of, well, whatever happens, like.
Yeah, there's my brain. There we go. Hold on to that, and just launch it. And
I need to tap into some of that, I think, because I've had a couple of opportunities come up, possibly for next year as well, and sort of thinking about the car and what it would be like makes me sort of think, oh my word, what am I doing? But I know that once I would sit in the car, I'd be fine. But it's just that time before. I think that comes from inexperience, I think. But just take the brain away, as you say. Just take it out.
Yeah, and like you said a minute ago, once like you're experiencing karting, once you're actually the lights go green and you're driving, you're fine. I mean, before hill climb, I'd get crazy butterflies, but then as soon as the lights go and you send the car, you're just
easy. Just send it and you're fine. There you go. Charlie Martin, just send it. 2020.
Just send it. Yeah.
By the way,
Quote
I'm going to take the rights to your documentary when you get to Le Mans, 205 to Le Mans. All right, that's going to be the title's mine. You've got to pay me for it now. If you could.
Okay, I like it.
I've got one more question. I think this is probably a good good thing to sort of end off with. It's from Gearhead Geisha, and it says, what has been the reception in the paddock to you being out there racing, Charlie?
I'd say it's been pretty positive, really. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. You know, I get some stupid comments on social media, like anyone does, but I think the overwhelming response I've had has been a really positive one, and I think that you know, I worried for so much of my life about trying to live as me, as my true self. And certainly in the context of motorsport and racing, that just seemed impossible to me, because growing up, I never saw anyone like me in motorsport. And I think that sends out a very clear message that you feel like, well, you know, that's a barrier to me trying to make it and be who I want to be. And so I think, you know, when I actually came back to racing in England in 2018 and started circuit racing, and I came out, it was really, really scary. It was like totally just a leap of faith. And and I was actually really, really surprised, pleasantly, that people, you know, a lot of people came out and were just really, really positive. And you know, in a lot of ways, it shouldn't make a difference, because at the end of the day, I'm a racing driver, and you know, it shouldn't be an issue. But the point is that I'm still very, very much in a minority, and I think it's important to use that platform to create more awareness and more acceptance, because then it makes it easier for other people to follow behind you. And I know how much easier it would have been for me growing up had there been someone like me to see and think, oh yeah, like I can do that. And so yeah, I think it's been a really positive experience. I mean, you know, this week's Trans Awareness Week, and you know, I've been putting out you know, some stuff on social media, and again, like just getting a really great response from people. So I think that, you know, motorsport is like a big family, and I think people often people are more accepting than I thought they were, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, you know, from my limited experience, I think people are mostly are just there to race. You know, I don't think there's whilst I think there's definitely a lack of diversity everywhere in motorsport. There's definitely once you're there, once you're driving, that sort of stuff, I like to think goes away most of the time. But you know, I think there are still steps to make.
Yeah, there are. I mean, you know, I've raced in teams when it's felt like the elephant in the room, and you know, it's not like I need to talk about being transgender or reference it all the time at all, like the complete opposite. But equally, you know, there are times when I'm doing things, maybe, you know, with the press or whatever, and like a film crew or something like that, and I'm talking, you know, like during Pride or something, and it's a bit like I felt a bit awkward, because it has just felt awkward, and that can be difficult, because you just want to feel like you can be yourself 24/7. And you know, that's one of the things I'm really, really excited about, you know, racing with Praga, because they've been really just really like proactive and really cool about my story, and like, oh, you know, this it's actually really nice, really refreshing to be working with a manufacturer where they see that as a really positive thing, and they're like, oh, you know, this is really great that Charlie's like doing something to try and, you know, help people and make motorsport inclusive. And you're like, oh, that's really nice, because you know that like you're in a great team environment and everybody is totally on board with who you are. And in any sport, it's all about being the best you can be and delivering your best performance. And the more comfortable and the more relaxed you feel, the better. So it's just a win-win for everybody, I think, to be open and just to accept people as they are. It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very easy, doesn't it? But you know, it's
yeah.
you'd hope people would see it that easily as well. And it's very refreshing to hear that people like Praga, as you say, taking those proactive steps. So I guess to end off, Charlie, if you were to speak to yourself maybe 10 years ago, right, as you are now, what bit of advice would you give yourself to say, like to put you on the way?
Oh, wow. I'd probably say don't worry too much about trying to get everything right. Don't worry so much about what people think about you, and just try and follow your heart and do what makes you happy, and stop trying to make everyone else happy and worrying about them, and just do what feels right for you. And when you feel that way, you feel happy in yourself, things just flow and things work out the way they're meant to.
I think that's fantastic advice for anyone, really. Definitely. Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I'm really looking forward to, let's say, having an interesting race tomorrow.
Thanks, Jimmy. I got to say, I noticed, I was looking to see if Seb Buemi was on the grid, because I think that's one of my claims to fame, is that Seb Buemi took me out so hard from behind in practice in the Formula E Race Zone Challenge that he hit me that hard. I honestly thought I was going to have to pay to get back in.
Well, we can invite him into the race and you can get a little bit of revenge. How about that? Sort it out that way.
Sounds good to me. No, thank you. It's been great to join you tonight for the debut opening of your shed. And I'm really looking forward to racing tomorrow. It's going to be fun.
Guys, go follow Charlie on Twitter. It is at GoCharlieM. And go give her a hello. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the first live from the shed. I've been Jimmy Broadbent. She's been Charlie Martin. And we'll see you all next time.